Today we're looking at simplifying rational expressions. Now the good news is if you can simplify a fraction that's just numbers, you can simplify a rational expression. So we're just going to baby step our way into this. So first, let's just look at the fraction 6/8. All right, so we know that the greatest common factor is 2. 2 will go into 6 3 times. 2 will go into 8 4 times. So 3/4 is as far as we can reduce that. 3 and 4 don't have anything in common. Now, I do want you to remember, on your calculators, you can do this piece with the numbers very quickly. So remember, you can go to your calculator. You can select alpha y equals, and you get this little menu. And you want to select number 1. The n over d is numerator over denominator. It's early morning, I'm having trouble talking. And then it'll give you a fraction form. You put in your numbers, you just hit enter, and it automatically is going to reduce it for you. So if you struggle with those greatest common factors and reducing your fractions, go ahead and let your calculator help you. All right, so that is the most basic. That's the skill we're going to use to do the rest of them. So let's add something to our situation. That's not a very good A. There we go. All right, so I've got 3 over 12a. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is just focus on my numbers. Okay, 3 over 12 reduces to 1/4. Okay, so that takes care of those. Now, I have an A sitting here. It's on the bottom. There's nothing up here to reduce it with. So that A is just going to come along here and stay on the bottom. So my final answer is 1/4a. So we're going to do the numbers first, and then we're going to do the variables. Let's do another one. 6a over 18a squared. All right, so again, we're going to start with the numbers. 6 over 18 reduces to 1/3. Okay? So that takes care of those. Now, this a squared is the same thing as a times a. So if you can't remember your exponent rules, you can write it out like this, and this a cancels with that a. That leaves us a single a on the bottom. There's nothing up top. So I am going to bring that a on the bottom over here. Now the other way to look at that is a divided by a squared. If you remember your exponent rules, remember that when we multiply like bases, we add the exponents. When we divide like bases, we subtract. So I'm going to bring this 1 down here to the bigger exponent. That leaves me with just 1 up here. The whole variable goes away. And 2 minus 1 leaves me with a to the 1. So I'm 1/a. Okay, so here is my final answer. I'm just showing you 2 different ways to do it. You can write out your a squared as a times a, or you can use your exponent rules. Both of them work. All right, let's look at number 4. I'm going through these fairly quickly because hopefully these are skills that you know. Remember, you can hit pause at any point and look at the problem more carefully. 12a squared times b to the 4th over 18 a cubed b cubed. Okay, starting out the same way I have been the whole time. Looking at my numbers first. 12 over 18, greatest common factor there is 6. So 6 will go into 12 2 times. 6 will go into 18 3 times. Okay. Now I am going to look at my A's. So I'm going to do it one variable at a time. This is the first problem that has multiple variables. So let's use our exponent rules. The biggest exponent is down here. So 3 minus 2 leaves me a single A. So that one goes away, and I'm left with a single A on the bottom. Again, you could write this out. The top is A times A, that's A squared. The bottom is A times A times A. Those two cancel out, those two cancel out. I'm left with 1 on the bottom. Okay, whichever way works best for you. All right, now I'm going to look at my B's. My bigger exponent this time is up here on top, so I'm going to do 4 minus 3. That leaves me 1, but it is on top. So I have a single B left on the top. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Let's go to another page. Number 5. Two x squared plus 8x over 3x plus 3. All right. Now, in this problem, we had one term on top, 12a squared b to the 4th. That's one term because everything's being multiplied together. On the bottom, we had one term. That's a 3. Trust me, that's a 3. Okay, so this is a term, and this is a term. When we look over here, we have one term, two terms. One term, two terms. How are the terms being separated? With the pluses. So when you have things that are being multiplied separated by a plus or a minus, you are dividing them into two different terms. Okay? So the key here is that we cannot cancel individual terms when we have addition and subtraction. We call it canceling across addition or subtraction. We cannot do that. So we can only cancel when things are being multiplied together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my greatest common factor of this binomial, which is a 2x. Remember, when we are finding our greatest common factor or factoring out our greatest common factor, we're dividing. So 2x squared divided by 2x leaves me just an x. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. 8x divided by 2x. The x's cancel out. 8 divided by 2 is a positive 4. Now notice, right now, I have this multiplied by this. That plus is inside parentheses, so I'm looking at this as one unit. So I no longer have two terms in the denominator. I've got one big term because everything's being multiplied. All right, on the bottom I have a greatest common factor of 3. And 3x divided by 3 is x. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, at this point, I'm going to look top to bottom. Let's look at our numbers first, just like we did before. 2 over 3 cannot be reduced any further. I don't have anything on the bottom to combine with my, or to reduce my x with, so can't do anything with that. And my parentheses on top and bottom are not exactly the same. If they were exactly the same, I could cancel, but they're not, so I can't. So the reality is, this whole thing is my final answer. We'll do another one. Okay, let's try another one of these that looks a little simpler. Okay, so this one, again, we have our addition on top and bottom. So we have two terms on top and bottom, so we can't cancel as long as those pluses are there. So let's go ahead. The top, We do not have any greatest common factor in x plus 1. It's just 1, so it's not going to change anything if we factor a 1 out. So let's do this, but I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around it so that I'm looking at it as a single term. Then down here, I have a 3 in common in both of these terms. So I'm going to factor it out. 3x divided by 3 is x. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now look what happened. I've got a parentheses on top, and I've got a 3 times a parentheses on bottom. Are the parentheses the same? Yes, I have an x plus 1 and an x plus 1. The variable, the number, and the signs are exactly the same. Those I can cancel out. So x plus 1 divided by x plus 1 is a 1, and there's a 3 left on bottom. We have to be sure and put this 1 up here. When we cancel everything out on top, it's not 0, the fraction doesn't go away, it's a 1. So we have to be sure that we do that to keep the value correct. Excuse me. All right, let's look at another one. Let's do x squared minus x minus 6 over x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay, now here we don't have a greatest common factor, and we have trinomials, which means dun, 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 we have to factor. Now, I want to remind you that one thing we've been doing in class is we've been putting our trinomials into y equals, and then going to our table and finding our factors. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm not going to go through the process of factoring. I'm going to trust that you guys have learned to do that now. So this one up here is x and x. This sign tells me that I'm going to have a plus and a minus. My factors of 6. I need to subtract numbers to give me a negative 1. So I'm going to use these, and the 3 needs to go with the negative. Okay, down here, I've got an x and an x. This sign tells me that both of my signs are going to be the same, and this one tells me they're both going to be pluses. I've already got my factors of 6 up here. I need to add numbers that will give me a 5, and that again is the 2 and the 3. Doesn't matter where I put them because they're both pluses. All right, now I'm looking at this as something times something, and something times something. There's no addition in between the parentheses, so I'm okay to simplify. This x plus 2 on top is exactly the same as the x plus 2 on the bottom, so those can cancel out. Now the x minus 3 on top, we don't have an x minus 3 on bottom, so we cannot cancel these two out. So I am left with x minus 3 over x plus 3. You can keep the parentheses around them, or you can drop them at this point. All right, let's do one more. Two x squared minus 7x plus 6 over 3x squared minus 8x plus 4. Okay, just to practice your factoring, I want you to hit pause. I want you to factor the top trinomial and then factor the bottom trinomial, and then hit play again and compare to see if you got the same answer as me. Okay, hit pause now. You should have gotten 2x minus 3 and x minus 2 for the top factor, and then 3x minus 2 times x minus 2 for the bottom. All right, so I'm going to look at 2x minus 3. Do we have a parentheses that has 2x minus 3 on the bottom? No, we don't. Do we have a parentheses on bottom that is x minus 2? We do. This one and this one, so they cancel out. And what I have left is my 2x minus 3 on top and my 3x minus 2 on bottom. Again, it does not matter here if I use parentheses or not. You could leave it without parentheses like we did up here, or keep the parentheses here. All right, that should be enough to help you get through your assignment.